Welcome to the Farming Without the Bank podcast, the show with a no BS approach to money, hosted by a farm strategy expert and authorized IBC practitioner. Join us as we get real and expose the flaws of traditional financial institutions in order to help farmers take control of their finances, create peace of mind, grow their wealth, and leave a legacy. Now, here's your host, Mary Jo Ehrman.
Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you very much for being here. For those of you watching, I don't know if you've noticed, but these readers have become a permanent fixture of my face. Are y'all out there over 40 years old and all of a sudden you wake up one day and you cannot see? Well, I'm waking up every day and I can't see anything. And so now I've got them all on all the time. And I got to figure out the lighting so that it doesn't look like I don't have eyes. This is ridiculous. Anywho, all right. By the time that you are listening to this, we had our little think tank in Iowa, and we had our little conference in Iowa for the non-clients. And I'm going to tell you it went wonderful, even though I haven't had it yet at the time of the recording. I have high hopes it's going to go well. If you missed it, I am sorry for you. I was thinking about this morning. And I mean, I'm not anybody special, right? I'm just me. But let's say that I'm Tony Robbins, or I am Blake Shelton, or I'm like some important person in the world. Y'all would make time to go see that person, right? No matter what, if there's a concert, if there's somebody there in superstar status, you are going to make time to see that individual because that is what is important to you. It's either fun or it's learning or whatever. And this is the same thing in every aspect of our life. If finances are important to you, you are going to make time to do that. I have had a lot of people cancel their appointments or they no-show their appointments because it's a busy time of year. We're out haying, we're harvesting, whatever it is, because you had to make your appointments forever ago. And then I have had about a handful of people say, yep, I came in from the field, or I made sure that I was at this meeting because I had to book it so long ago. And this is important to me. I want to get this figured out. And so I want you just to kind of sit on that. I'm not here to make anybody feel guilty and say, hey, you should come see me because I'm a superstar. That is not what I'm saying. What I am saying is we do what is important to us. And if finances are truly important to you, is waiting to meet with me, is waiting to see me in person, is that going to help you advance any? Or do we need that help and a little bit of that insight to what infinite banking is so that we can start advancing? Are we tired of where we're at long enough to start doing that, right? Every aspect of life. I have aspects of my life that should be more important and they just are not to me. And so I'm not going to take time out of my schedule to go see somebody or do something. I get it, 100% understand. But I also sometimes need to be reminded that, hey, if you want something to change, you have to do it. As much as you may not like that, you have to do that. So if you have a meeting scheduled with me, is it truly worth an hour and a half of saying, you know what, we have to shut down? Is that hour and a half going to make a difference for harvest? I don't know. Only you can answer that question. Okay, today I want to talk about generations versus generations. And so young versus old, old versus young. I frankly don't care. It's generations butting heads with generations. And I had a meeting yesterday that really, it was more of a frank meeting than I have had in a very long time. I am not a counselor, you guys. I am not a certified licensed counselor, but I end up doing a lot of counseling type stuff. And so I wanted to just share today what conversation I had yesterday because I don't side with one generation over the next. I understand there are two sides to every story. I am not here saying, hey, this millennial generation or the Gen Xers should be, mad at the boomers because they're not handing anything over, or the silent generation isn't handing anything over if we still have grandparents that are alive. I am not here to tell you one generation is better than the other. We all know I love my millennials, but there are good and bad of every single generation. So yesterday's conversation was very frank because of the fact that we have a family dynamic where part owners of this operation are attorneys for a living. They have nothing to do with the farm. They don't know how the farm runs. They've never had anything to do with the farm. The farm was purchased as a tax write-off to a successful non-farm business. And we see that a lot. That is something that is quite common, right? And so in that scenario, we have one of the grandkids that is actually running the farm and doing the farm things. But the older generation doesn't know what those farm things are. They don't know the value, nothing. But they're attorneys, and so they're snaky. And there are good attorneys out there, don't get me wrong, but these guys are snaky. And so the brother that is not the attorney won't necessarily stand up to the brother that is the attorney. And we are going to see, after a long conversation, what we're going to see is that the attorneys are basically going to screw everybody that's not an attorney and on their side. They're going to screw them out of everything to get everything. And the grandson says to dad, well, why don't you just split it now? Why are we waiting for everybody to die? And dad doesn't have the you-know-what to stand up to them. But they're basically not paying the grandson anything. He's running everything. They're not consulting with him on anything. And they know nothing about the operation. And here was my advice, which I don't take lightly. I don't say this often, but to the grandkid, barely getting paid enough to survive and raise a family. Well, in fact, not getting paid enough to survive and raise a family. Cousins and uncles and aunts trying to screw us out of what the little bit that we do have, trying to completely take control of that and take that away. And staying there for the legacy, staying there to make sure that everything survives, when in fact we have all the powers that be that are fighting against us. My question is, why are we still there and where are your you-know-whats? Because at some point, you are keeping the value of that land up for them to just take from you. Why are you continually being a doormat? And in this situation, we have a Gen X/millennial. He's probably right on the cusp. We have a situation where the older generation will not talk about it. They are fighting amongst themselves, making the younger generation who wants to take over, making it nearly impossible. One of the family members already escaped the chaos because she could see it coming. And so if we are in a situation like that, here is what I have to say today. If you are the older generation listening to this, at what point do you protect what you need to and do what you need to for the younger generation? At what point do you say everything that I know and all I've done and what my ancestors have done has not exactly been correct? It's time to change and make the change. The older generation had to go through hell and back, but they have forgotten what it was like, or they figure everybody needs to go through hell and back. That is why. That's just absolutely absurd to me. with everything and all the knowledge that we have today at our fingertips, the only reason we don't want to change is because of our pride. It's because maybe we were grown up and we were raised in an environment where we did not show any kind of emotion. Now, you guys, I was raised in a 100% German environment. There was no emotion on any side. Okay, my grandma was like a super cheery person, but there was no I love yous. There was no pats on the back. There was no conversations, no mushiness. Okay. I am a fairly hard individual based in today's world. I don't, as my children say, I don't have feelers. And so you're hearing this from somebody that doesn't want some sort of emotional mushy talk. I don't even want to hear it. Like it, like I just don't even like that sort of conversation. Like, oh, I love you kids. And this is what we're going to leave you. I am not that person. Okay. I'm very practical, matter of fact. We don't need to get emotions involved, but I'm telling you, you need to have the conversation, eat your pride, grow the heck up, and decide what you're going to do. If you find yourself in a situation where you are the older generation farming with dad, brothers, sisters, and one of them is controlling, put your big boy britches on and decide what you're going to do. Have that hard conversation. There is one thing I am not scared of, and that is confrontation. It needs to happen. And the longer you avoid it, the worse it is. Okay? Don't be a contractor. That's what contractors do. Oh my God, I did something wrong. We're just going to put our head down and pretend like it never happened. No. No. Have the conversation. Then the younger generation, here's my advice to you. Unsolicited, of course. You did not ask me for this. If the older generation continues to not want to have that conversation, you better dig deep and figure out what you're going to do. If you're going to stay and work for free, then you better be building something on the side. If you're going to have to wait until somebody's dead to have any kind of input, you may not have control until somebody's dead. That's normal. But to not have any kind of input and trying to deal with people that don't know anything about anything. If you're in that situation, are you going to stay, and for how long? How long before you start building your own thing? You're just going to sit around and wait for somebody to give you something? No, we're not waiting for anything. We're going to build it on our own. And then if we get it, fantastic. But we shouldn't have to wait to prove that we can do it on our own. If you can do it, you can do it on your own. You may not get to own the ground, but you might get to lease the ground. You might get to run cows on shares. You might get to farm somebody's ground. Whatever. I don't care what it is. Okay? There are lots and lots of people that don't get an opportunity to have anything until mom and dad pass. And when I say a lot of people, I mean 99% of people. It is extremely rare that I see a farm operation turn hands before somebody's dead. Extremely rare. And so if you want to build something, go build it. What are you worried about? That they're going to be upset? They're upsetting you and they don't even care about it. I just hit my mic and got all excited. They're upsetting you. They don't give two shakes about upsetting you, about taking advantage of you, about treating you like a doormat. None of that stuff matters to them. Why should it matter to you? If you can't sit down and have that conversation, how do you know what's going to happen? The older generation, you need to understand they're not going to sit around. The younger generation, you need to understand you're not going to sit around. Go do it on your own. But stop allowing them to be a doormat, or stop allowing them to treat you like a doormat. And when I say this, I don't mean stop allowing it after a year. Okay? Like, if you're young and you just came into the operation and you're already whining about not knowing what's going on and you're in year 2 or 3, you haven't even got enough wetness behind your ears to complain about anything. I am talking people that are 40, 45, 50 years old, and we've put 20 plus years into an operation, and we still do not have a family that will talk about anything. We still have complete chaos. I am talking about putting 20 years of your life in and having no conversation. You have the right to go build something. You had that right at year 2 or 3, but you don't have the right to complain at year 2 or 3. And I have talked to some young millennials that are like, oh, I've been here for 5 years and there's no plan. Yeah, because dad's probably owned it for 7 or 8. There's not going to be a plan. But when we get decades into this, somebody has to figure out where they're going to go. And are we as a younger generation going to continue to be a doormat for another 20 years, for 40 years and have no clue? And the older generation thinks that that's okay for 20 or 40 years because you did it that way? No. When we're talking decades, this is not an okay situation. And so I have seen enough of these that can already see where everything is going. I can't tell you how many meetings I have, and somebody will say, oh, so you know what's going on. Because they're not even telling me the full story, and I'm already asking the questions about, do we have a vulture? Like, is this vulture hiding in the back, waiting to just swoop in and take all the money? Or do we have vultures that have attorneys that are waiting to just get access to everything? They're like, oh, you do? You've heard about this, huh? I'm like, everybody's the same. 90% of you have the same sort of operation. Rarely do I see anything that's actually somewhat new. So you all are in the same boat. Don't think that your family is the only one not talking. It's the majority of you out there. That's why people like myself and Jolene Brown have jobs. My good friend Jolene Brown has a job because y'all are fighting and you can't figure out how to have a conversation. And that's what needs to happen is a conversation. So, today's advice. If you're an older generation, open your mouth. If you're the younger generation, how long are you going to be the doormat? After decades of being a doormat, how long are you going to be the doormat? I wouldn't be a doormat for more than 10, 15 years. And if I was, and I was happy with being a doormat because in the end, it's worth it, then I'm going to start building something on the side. And I'm going to start making some extra income and stop allowing somebody else to decide what that's going to look like. Because if you're the younger generation, you might want to start buying some stuff out or building a policy on mom or dad so that upon their death, you have something to buy out. Okay, guys, that's all I got for you. Let me know if you need anything. Mary Jo at withoutthebank.com. You can grab the book, Farming Without the Bank, if you like. Get the book, read it, and then schedule your appointment. And I am happy to go over everything with you and see if this works for you and how it fits. That's it. That's all I got. You have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to the Farming Without the Bank podcast. We hope today's episode has inspired you to take control of your finances in new ways. Don't forget to check out our website, farmingwithoutthebank.com, and engage with us on our Facebook page, Farming Without the Bank. Join us next week as we smash more financial myths and empower you to accomplish your financial goals.